Good evening, everyone. I think I have Carrie, Rita, and Trina in tonight for this special webinar to showcase my new products, Is the Price Right, and Play on Number. And I'm going to do this a little bit differently tonight because I'm actually going to work through the problems and as though you are my students. I just want to backtrack a little bit on those products. Those people who had pre-registered got the samples, so I hope you have went through the problems and kind of just looked at that, and you have manipulatives in front of you, and we're going to chat a little bit about that. But in the ones that are on the website for sale, you can get them again in Google Slides, printables, PowerPoint, right, Shauna? And then the packages, and each one separate is $15, or the package is $50, and they actually contain 15 problems each, and that's huge. Like, there's a lot of work in those, differentiation, modifications, just things like that. So anyways, but we're going to get started. You can find out more about that, or look at my website, or email me, check out that on that link, and you'll find out more. I'm going to take you through two of the problems, one from each, and we're going to start with, is the price right? Now, when we look at those mathematical problems and the content, I want you to be thinking about what is it that, what concepts that interweaving is going on throughout the curriculum that you are expecting kids to know in the mathematics. And I often get asked, and I'm going to backtrack, why is money? Why are we worrying about money if it's not in the curriculum or that we are to teach? Money is number, and it's huge. And I've actually read interesting article that just came out in the NCTM magazine, is Making Sense Out of Sense. It is grade 1. And Dan Finkel is actually touring Australia right now, and he was actually tweeting for help with ideas on helping kids understand money at the elementary level. We have to have them. It is a life skill, and it is actually just work with number, and kids love to work with money. I was in a grade 3 classroom today, and they didn't know what a dime or a nickel was, and that is money, but it is number. So we're going to go back to this problem, and I'm going to ask you, what was the important information that needed to be known here? What math is important to know for these kids? And when I look at that problem, I think what was important to know is that child wanted to buy something for 25 cents. There was a candy for 25 cents that they wanted to buy. And if we take away that cent sign, that's just a number. That's 25. And does a child understand what that 25 is? That's that 2 10s and 5 1s. Okay, that's making, or a 10 and 15, or however they decompose that number, but do they have the meaning of that number? So they need to know that that's what they have. When they went to their mom, she didn't give that 25 cents right away. We know, and I'm hoping that a student would know, and I'm just, Shauna, you can just wait right there too. We would hope that a student would actually know, because I would ask, well, what would that coin be? Well, that coin's a quarter, and it has a value of 25 cents. So they need that value. But when mom pulled out, mom wouldn't give them the exact amount. She was wanting them to actually think, and I think that's awesome. And so they had to be able to decompose. This number had to be decomposed with those different coins that had a value of, there was a dime. Okay, and so students needed to know that dime had a value of 5 cents, and that nickel, okay, has a value of 5 cents. And don't let them call them a 25 cent, a 10 cent, and a 5 cent. They have to know the name of the coin and the value. Okay, so mom pulled out some money, okay, and she pulled out, and we'll go back here at the desk right away, but I think she pulled out 8 coins. And those were, there was a dime, and there was 7 nickels. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7 nickels. Okay, So there was a little bit of questions there. Mom said to them, well, Mom said to her child, you can decide which coins you need to take, and you definitely can go buy that gummy for 25 cents, but that student has to do some thinking. So what do they need to figure out? They need to figure out how to compose, that means recompose. How would they recompose these, can they, to get this 25? But I first of all asked, do these 8 coins give a value of 25 cents? So that is what they first of all need to figure out. Were they going to take all of these coins? Was that going to be 25 cents? Because that's not what Mom wanted to do. Or could they figure out which of those coins they could combine to make that 25 cents? So they are figuring out those combinations, or those ways to recompose the values of 5 and a 10 into that greater value of 25. So if we just go back here in terms of manipulatives, and I like students to use a variety of manipulatives and work things out. So having the plastic coins, I know that when I was in my grade 3 classroom, they also had a paper bag or a plastic bag with paper money coins that they had there at access at any time. We always had a hundreds chart available to us at any time they wanted. So first of all, I think what is important is they need to know whether these 8 coins in themselves provide a value, or not provide a value, but actually equal a value of 25 cents. Is it greater or is it more? And I would ask them to make that estimate first to give them an idea, or get an idea from them if they're actually understanding if that's reasonable. Okay, because we want them to have a reasonableness to answers as well, and that's important. So I would get them to put that money, lay that money out there in front of them, and I would be going around and trying to get them to count, or seeing what they have figured out. So of course, kids may need to use their hundreds chart. Some would maybe be grouping their nickels into tens. 2 5s make a 10. Okay, so right away, if this is a 10 and 20, 25, well, this has to be more. Okay, so really just how are they determining that? How are they figuring that out? Maybe some kids are actually having to count out 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. Maybe they're actually having to go on a hundreds chart and going 5 and 5 more, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 5 more. Okay, really seeing where those students are in their thinking. And if there is a little bit of productive struggle, that's okay. Are they learning from that? Where are they? Some kids may be in that surface phase learning, some are in that deeper learning, and some are into that transfer phase learning. And Rita, you're probably with me on that online classroom, because that's where you are in terms of learning that. And John Hattie says we have to understand those different phases because it guides our teaching. It creates that expert teacher, and I believe that that's very true. So I want them to be able to first of all tell me that that amount is greater than 25 cents. Okay, that's really important. So then I want them to recompose. Okay, I want them to be able to tell me what would they take? Where would 25 cents be made? How would they make it? So some kids would probably be able to tell me, depending on the level, that they would know 5 groups of 5 is 25. So they would automatically take 5 nickels. Okay. Some kids would you would actually probably see them going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, a count all. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. You might see them do it on their fingers. You might see them do it on a hundreds chart. Some might be able to they might be able to start at 10, and like I said, grouping. And 2 5s make a 10, and then 5 more makes another 25. So those different combinations to make 25, because again, in greater number arithmetic or fluency, that arithmetic fluency to add or subtract greater numbers, the ability to decompose and recompose is really important. So think about all the number actually that is going into this and working with money. So we have to be thinking about that with kids to do that. And they can actually go into, which is that algebraic thinking, which I think, again, and I've read this in an NCTM magazine article probably about 3 or 4 years ago, but also through Kathy Fosnot, that it's that algebraic thinking. If I have, and I'll put it here, we have a quarter. It's representing 25 cents, or the value of 25 cents, which is the same as a dime and 3/4. And when I'm saying the same as, I'm using the equality symbol. Okay? Pardon me?
Not 3/4. 3 nickels, not 3/4.
Oh, sorry, 3 nickels. Sorry. Thank you, Shauna. I'm thinking of something different in my head. Thank you. And I make mistakes too. I'm human. So 3 nickels and a dime will give me the same value as the quarter, which is 25 cents. And if I, again, okay, I could have, I'm just going to get another nickel here. I've got 5 nickels, not quarters. Thanks, Shauna. So that is another representation. So this is an algebraic equation. They're different coins, but they're representing the same value, and that's where we are in algebraic thinking. 25 is the same as 25 is the same as 25, but it's represented differently. So we want kids to be able to understand that again and think the richness in developing number sense through that, and just the ability to think through it. So that's that problem. Does anybody have any questions or comments before we move on to the next one? Do they think this is a level of ability, like, because in the article I just read actually in the newest edition of the November edition of the NCTM article, or the magazine that I got, Teaching Children's Mathematics, that I read from front to back for the last 3 years, Making Sense Out of Sense. This is actually, I've been doing this for years or whatever, but this was actually, a lady had just written about this at a grade 1 level. This is what in United States they're expecting their grade 1 students to be able to do with nickels and dimes, because they're supposed to be able to skip count by 5s and skip count by 10s at that grade 1 when we look at that curriculum. And when we get into think about the levels, even when you're working with your grade 4 or 5 students, I think this is really something that they could continue to work on. And they need that ability to be thinking, and again, modifying that. Maybe they have $1.50, and there's different kinds of candy, and what can they buy? So there's so many differentiation pieces to this. So I'm just wondering kind of where your thoughts are with this. If your students, do you think how would your students do with this kind of problem? And do you see their rich value in developing number sense with this kind of problem? They do have to learn the name of the coin and then the value, but in terms of, are you meaning to find the sums or the totals using their hundreds charts? Because you bet. And they should be learning that through their daily routine about numbers, like decomposing number. In my routine, there's writing number equations to get to that number, really learning how to decompose, but using that skip counting ability, right? But definitely can use a number line. They can use a hundreds chart. I didn't bring a number line with me, but any kind of support systems that they need, definitely you do allow them to use those. That's important. I have many people who say to me that they don't teach money because it's not in the curriculum, and it is such a life skill, plus it's that skip counting. And people say, well, why do you still include the penny? Well, the penny connects to the one's place value, and the one's place value isn't going anywhere. Plus, when we pay on debit and credit, we still have to pay that penny, and it gets rounded. They need to understand that. Plus, they need to understand it's all to do with that skip counting. So it builds in that number sense. So I actually incorporate, even grade 3s don't need to be learning decimals, but my kids learn decimals in grade 3, and actually ask Shauna, she's been in my room lots, and into mixed fractions. So every school day, actually on a hundreds grid, on a blank hundreds grid, just a 10 by 10 grid, and I didn't bring one today, but just to give you the idea, just say it's a 10 by 10. Okay, and so every school day starting on day 1 with my grade 3s, we fill in one of those squares that represents 1 cent out of $1. And then I have a place value pocket chart for my decimal numbers as well as my whole numbers. So every day again in that routine, we have the ones, okay, the tenths, and the hundredths. So this is built on a day thing. That's why, Rita, I said to you to start with day one as well when you were asking me. So on day one, there's $0. We learned that a row is a tenth, which is a dime. There's no tenth, and there's 1/100th. And we do that every school day. Okay, so when we end up at the last school day, it's 1 76/100ths, which is $1.76. But they learn that that's also 1 76/100ths. So build all that in, but we still work like on a daily basis too, where their paper money comes out and it's, say, school day today was school day 52 because I went to do a model lesson in a grade 3 classroom. And it's take out your money and show me all the different ways to make 53 cents. Or I am thinking of, 52 cents. I'm thinking of 4 coins. Can you tell me what those 4 coins are that make 52 cents? It's really interesting that some kids can't do that. They could tell me 5 dimes and 2 pennies, but when I limit them the number of coins or tell them a certain amount of coins, they can't give me that value. So again, really being able to decompose and recompose number in many different ways because it builds on that arithmetic fluency. It's so connected. When we look at the curriculum, it's so intricately interwoven that we really need to understand that concepts and skills and whatever it is that we're teaching has to be connected. Decimals are fractions, and it connects to multiply and divide and all those things, skip counting and everything. So I could go on that one, but just wanted to share that with you. Sorry, I get really passionate. Okay, we are going to go on to play on number. Remember on this one, there's 15 problems. There's 15 problems with remediations, modifications, adaptations for all levels, kindergarten. Probably, I put them to grade 6, but I'm sure grade 7 and 8s can probably do them, because when Shauna was doing all the amazing work, her magic, she said, Darlene, some of these are really hard. Okay, so our next one, Shauna. Talk about what kids need to do, or what kids need to know here. Again, we might think, oh, you know, grade 1s or 2s or 3s can't do this. And again, I have been working, I read about 3 years ago, I read an amazing article, French fry iterations, and teaching our young students about fractions. What fractions are just fair shares. They're iterations and they're copies of one another. They're just you get an iteration and it just copies itself over and over and over and over again. And kids, and what the article says and what the research says is if the kids don't understand magnitude of number, they're not going to understand fractional numbers. So something that I've started, and I've been working with classes right from kindergarten, and I've been mentoring and mentoring a teacher now and teaching grade 5, 6, and her students don't understand what a fraction is, because we tend to teach fractions to students in, they just learn that there's the shaded part and the unshaded part, and there is so much more to fractions. So I just wanted to share that with you just really quickly, because I'm going to show you something here on how to do that. But again, just what do kids need to know when it comes to that? Okay, so I'm just going to put, what do they need to know? Okay, well, they need to know, they need to understand that fractions are just basically fair shares. Okay. And this again is connected to decimals, it's connected to measurement, it's connected to, again, it's not in isolation, okay? When we think of a fraction, it's an iteration. And what that iteration does is copy itself, okay? And kids need to understand that. It copies itself over and over and over and over again to make that whole, whatever that whole may be. So they need to know that. They need to know, of course, there was a whole Snickers bar, okay? And the sister, was it, I think? Well, it doesn't matter. One of the siblings was saying that she is going to take a half of it, okay? Or I think it said in there 4/8, right, Shauna? Yep. Okay, so a half or 4/8. So just again, and with little guys, they say we don't have to worry about showing that fractional notation per se, but they can understand that a half is what? 2 fair shares. okay? That 4/8 is 4/1/8. And I'm going to share with you what I mean by that, because some of you might be thinking, what is she talking about when she's talking about 4/1/8? Okay? And that's where the number line work comes in, and it's hugely important for kids to understand. And they need to think about then too, we think this is really big. They need to think, well, is 2 times 1/8 equivalent or the same as this? Well, this is really two groups of 1/8. Okay, that's all that is, and that's what they need to think of. So, and then what do they need to know? Well, is this the same as this? Is that fair? Is that going to be the same? So this is what they need to know. So what to find out, right? And I'm just making this, so I'm just going to go back here again to this table. And again, I can't do everything with you tonight, but I'm just going to share with you, and I've done this with grade 5s and 6s, and this is huge. And this preliminary work that I can't do a lot with you tonight, but just taking strips of paper. So, and knowing that this is a whole that needs to be shared out. And kids actually use their fingers, and they have to find those iterations, okay, that copy, because of how many, you know, if the iteration is this big, and they can use non-standard units, first of all, too, which is great for them to do. They could put down, you know, well, how many of these felts will iterate itself to make that whole strip? How many of these little colored squares or whatever it is? And that's really important. And then they go to those fingers. But we know here that this is important. This tells me 8. That tells me that there has to be 8 pieces. Okay. So if this Snicker bar, if this is my whole Snicker bar, okay, I have to have 8 pieces that are fair shares. And this is where these finger iterations come in, and they only have to do that. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm a little bit too over, so that means my iteration has to be a little bit smaller. See, that's where they have to understand that. And if they were short, it has to be a little bit bigger. So I'm just going to go in just a little bit smaller here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. See, I'm too short, okay, on there. So I'm just going to take, and I'm just going to go, I'm running out of time here, so I'm just going to go a little bit faster. But then once they have that, they can start making their marks. So 1, first of all, it's the whole number. It's the magnitude of number, okay? 2, and that just copies itself. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have 8 pieces, right? Now this isn't, the line itself isn't an iteration, the space, that's the count, that's important. So now I say 1/8, okay? 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and 8/8, which make that whole. So they go from the magnitude of number to the fractional unit, and that's all it is. And this is again, research says that this is how we have to start showing them that understanding of fractions. I have another article that I need to read on number line and fractions. That one's waiting for me tomorrow. So anyways, that's now where I want to say, okay, so there's the Snicker bar. My sister told me she's going to take half, and if they don't know what half is, that's okay. They know that this is 4/8, and what 4/8 is 4/1/8. Okay, it's 4 times the 1/8. It's 4 pieces of that 1/8. So 1/8, 1/8, 1/8, 1/8. That's 4/1/8. So my sister, okay, has that much. Okay, so she took that much of the bar. So I'm just going to, so if we fold it there, and oh, there's half, depending who you're working with. Okay, the level. So there's half. Now she told me, okay, that I get 2 1/8. Okay, so that's 1/8, 2/8. Okay, and actually sometimes they have to rip and tear and sieve and put them over top. And if I put it over top, I didn't get the fair share. I didn't get a fair share. And if I look there, I need how many more 1/8? I need 2 more 1/8 to have the same as her. And just that, again, that early initial understanding. But again, when I was in that grade, I've done 3 fraction lessons with this grade 5 and 6 group, and they're finally getting that idea of those iterations, those pieces, those parts that have to iterate. So that's just a little bit about how I would work through that problem with students. And you might even just start with half, okay? And would you get a fair share? And then we share that half and half, and thinking about how that would work, okay, on there. So just a little bit about that. And again, with this product, there's again 15 questions that can be utilized at different grades and modifications and adaptations. So those 15 could be used with all your class. And of course, we have kids at different levels and what they need. I've had substitute teachers. This package is, like I said, could be modified, adapted. You can have some fun with your kids at home if you have kids at home, but just to really engage those kids in that number sense. And again, thinking about this, thinking about that this is a fraction one, but think about how much more is going on in there. They can fold to start, Rita, but then what the research is saying is they really have to understand that a fractional part is an iteration, and doing those iterations is really important. It's critical to their understanding. The learning, the work that I've been doing, I'm just passionate about all the mathematics, but the learning that I have been coming to know about fractions, because it's something I struggled with, it's incredible. The learning, and kids as young as kindergarten, grade 1 and 2, through those iterations are understanding what a fractional unit is. And that's, folding is great. It is definitely great to do, but then they have to actually, whether it's again using, objects first, and how many iterations will fill this space. It's just like measurement, Rita, or whoever's listening. But then to be able to understand that fractional unit, it actually just iterates and copies itself. It's huge. Share this video with people, let them know. I'm hoping that you guys will take on that mantra. Rita, you guys have seen, if not me, then who? I have been out subbing, and I don't know about you guys, but there is a real need for change in how we are teaching mathematics for our students. And I'm hoping, for them to have fun and be engaged, but to really develop that deep number sense. Without that number sense, our students will not, they're really going to struggle. And I'm hearing that from, upper elementary students who are kind of losing that foundation without that number sense. So let's go, ladies. Thank you.